It's about having those pieces in place that are going to allow you to get more of what you want and to elevate into your next level.
Welcome to the Badass Manifester podcast, keeping you inspired with high vibe content, bringing you the best manifestation and mindset tools, teachings, interviews, and answering questions to help empower you to get out of your own way and take massive action to make magic your everyday normal. I'm your host, Ashley Gordon, spiritual life and manifestation coach, helping women and spiritual entrepreneurs manifest more impact, influence, and income. It is my purpose and pleasure to help you wake up to the badass creator that you are. Let's do this. We have Sabrina Phillipp here today, and I am literally like a little fangirl. I'm so excited. Seriously, Sabrina, thank you so much for saying yes to being on the show. Welcome to the Badass Manifester podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't yet know Sabrina, I'm going to have her share her story because it's so inspiring. And once I found you online, I started researching you a little bit more, and I heard some podcasts you were on, and I was like, I really want her to be on the show, just because you embody everything that this show is about. And yeah, and we have a lot in common, so I'll tell you more about that later. But for those that don't know you, can you just share a little bit about your amazing journey?
Definitely. Thank you. So I oftentimes start by telling people about how I moved to Bali when I was 22 years old. But if we're getting real about it, I think my journey started when I was 19 years old and I got kicked out of college. So I had really been struggling for a few years with thinking that I was just the victim of circumstance. And my mom is so mean, and my dad is so mean, and life is so unfair, and all of these bad things happened to me, that I had really internalized the story that I was a victim of everybody else instead of the controller of my own life. And if we're going to talk about badass manifesting, you can't be a badass manifestor and a victim at the same time.
Boom.
And so I think that's kind of where we need to start. And so what happened was, when you get kicked out of your college and you're 19 years old, your mom is kind of like, well, we got to do something with you. And so her solution was that she was going to send me to an ashram to get my yoga teacher training. And so I'm there 19 years old at an ashram, and everyone's wearing, white pants and yellow t-shirts, shaving their heads and calling themselves Vishnu and Krishna. And I'm calling up my mom saying, what the fuck?
Yeah.
You have sent me to the loony bin. You've got to get me off this island. These people are crazy. She listened. She said, I love you, hung up the phone. And I found myself in this super uncomfortable situation that I was just rejecting and resisting and thinking I was so much smarter than and so above. And I was also the youngest person there. So I would kind of show off during the yoga classes of how I could like stand on my head for 10 minutes, like, haha, look at me. Because I was very much protecting myself with my ego. And I remember we would have, because it's a very traditional ashram, we would have yoga philosophy classes every day. And I was, really smart, really quick reader. So I could be listening to everything they're saying while I would hide kind of more advanced philosophy books behind my textbook. And I would be in the back of the class reading something else. And I don't know what happened, but one day something inside me just kind of broke. And I realized what I had been doing to myself. And I think that's such a shift, because it was no longer, look what everybody else is doing to me. It's look what I did to me, right? Like, how could this super smart, super bright young girl get kicked out of college and now be here in this ashram around all of these older people having midlife crises and like breakdowns? And yet I'm the one who is like the most messed up of them all, because I think that something is wrong with everybody else when really I was the one doing this to myself. And so that moment completely changed the course of my life. At the time, I had been on antidepressants for years. I never took another antidepressant ever again. I threw them away that day. I've never had a depressive episode since then. I went back to school and I got great grades. I got super involved with student government and politics and things like that. And my entire life changed because I realized that I had built a prison of my own making, and I had forgotten that the whole time I was holding the key and I could walk out at any moment.
So powerful.
And so I think that's why when we talk about spiritual awakenings and just kind of like getting in touch with your spirituality or diving deeper on that path, for me, it's not so much that we're discovering something, it's that we're remembering something. And what we remember is that the power was always with us, right? And so we create the reality that we experience. I thought that I was a victim, and therefore I lived in a victim-based state. And that's all I saw around me, because that's what manifesting is. It's about seeing what you believe to be true, right? If you believe that you're a victim, you're going to see evidence that tells you that's the case, because that's what you're manifesting. The problem is that most people are unconsciously manifesting things. They're focusing more on what they don't want than calling in what they do want. Now, part of that's worthiness, not feeling worthy of good things. Therefore, you don't even dare to let yourself go there. But once I realized that this is all a mind game and that this is all, a reality of my own making, I could get super clear on what it is that I wanted and start really intentionally calling that in.
And so really good at it.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing is that anyone can be really good at it, right?
Totally.
I think that we're all going to get there in different ways. For some people, that might mean picking up a Gabby Bernstein book. For me, that meant getting kicked out of college at 19 and really having the universe like smack me in the ass. It's going to look different for everybody, but actually getting to that point is the same, where you realize, wait, I can have whatever I want.
Totally. That's very much so how it happened for me too. Like my form of medicine, spiritual awakening, was a horrible high school relationship that crushed my world, and that's what kind of sent me on my journey of discovering The Secret, and then Conversations with God book, and then, all the things. But like, you're so right. Everyone's journey is different to their own remembering, but it's very much so a remembering. I love that.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think that for me, getting to that point where I realized, or not realized, but again, remembered that I can have whatever it is that I want out of this life, it made me more brave, because I was willing to be super authentic about what I wanted and not back down from that. Because our authentic truth is that we want good things, and we want grand experiences, and we want deep, powerful, passionate love, and we want, to live richly and in community and feel good. But for conditioning and social reasons, we back down from that. So it's actually really uncomfortable for us to stand in our authentic truth. But once we do that and we become more brave, that's when we can start taking radical action that for others might not make sense. But for us, it's so in alignment with our purpose that, of course, the universe is going to back us up and help us get what we want. So for me, one of the first times I did that in the context of my business is at 22 years old. I booked a one-way plane ticket to Bali. I had about $800 in my bank account. I didn't have a business at that point. I had found someone who was paying me $12 an hour for 10 hours a month to write Instagram captions. That was the only income I had lined up, $120 a month.
Ballin'.
But I was just so determined. I was like, of course it's going to work out. Why? Because I decided. Of course,
you had that mindset going to Bali. You're like, this is going to work out. I don't know how. I don't have to know how, but you were in full on trust.
Yeah, because for me, I know that a lot of people think you need to know the how before you can get to the decision, right? I need to know all the logical steps, and then I will have the evidence that I can do this thing that I want to do. The problem with that is 99% of people will never feel ready. I don't want to use absolute terms. There's going to be some person who's going to look at their big pile of evidence and say, okay, I will jump now. Right. But the vast majority of people just won't. And so for me, I've always been a jump first, figure it out later kind of person. It's like a cat always lands on their feet because they have to. Right? I'm always going to land on my feet because I have to. I had to succeed because there was no other option. I wasn't going to be able to call up my mom and say, hey, like I'm dead in a ditch, please come save me, because she would have been like, save yourself. And I think that was the big change for me, is realizing no one was coming to save me, and I didn't need anyone else to save me. I am my own safety. I am my own savior.
Wow. I literally posted today that a quote, like, you are the one that you've been waiting for and looking for.
Absolutely.
It's so true. So true. Wow. What a journey. So what happened when you got there? So you you were doing the social media, you were doing captions, and then how did that shift?
So I hired maybe 4 or 6 weeks after I got to Bali a business coach. And one thing I've learned about investing in business is nobody just has the money lying around. A lot of people will use that excuse of, oh, I don't have the money, but nobody ever just has a bunch of money sitting around waiting to hire a coach, right? That's not actually a thing. You make the decision and then you figure out the how.
You hear
So
that, everyone? Do you hear that?
exactly. And that's like even true at this level. It's not like I've just got a bunch of money sitting around waiting for a coach. I invest that in many different things. I spend $250,000 a year on my team, not to mention Facebook ads and everything else. So that money is constantly in circulation for something. But when I decide this is what I want to invest in, that's when I shuffle things around or manifest more money or do whatever, right? Because money always goes where it has a purpose. And if it doesn't have a purpose, it's going to go somewhere else.
I love that.
Or it's just not going to show up. So I think that's something for people to realize. And so for me, what I did was I put $3,600 on a credit card for 6 weeks of private coaching. And a month after that, I made my first $10,000 cash month.
Wow.
And I got really good at scaling my social media business into an agency and consulting. And for me, my brain has always been really strategic. I did a lot of graduate work in political campaigning when I was in college. And so for me, I've also been a very marketing-based person. So for me, I would look at all the people I admired and I would say, what's the common thread? Because I never wanted to follow in someone's footsteps exactly. I wanted to figure out what's the thing that all successful people have in common. For online influencers, at the time, it was video marketing. That was something newer that most people weren't into yet. And so I got really big into doing live streams, right? Or if I saw that really successful people have a very specific framework unique to them, and they're not just branding themselves, but they're branding their teachings, okay, I'm going to do that too. So I got really strategic about what it is that I needed to do to be successful as true to who I am, not trying to be another little Marie Forleo or Gabby Bernstein or a mini Tony Robbins, but just being my own self. And so I think that also is important. And that's what allowed me to grow so quickly, because you can't get in alignment with somebody else's mission. The universe is not going to back that up. If you're trying to be a mini Tony Robbins, but you were always meant to be Ashley Gordon, the universe isn't going to support that. That's not going to propel you forward. So it's really important to get aligned with the truth of who you are and what you're meant to be doing. And I was always clear on that from the beginning. And I think that's part of the reason why I grew so quickly, because I was never trying to be anybody else than me.
That's so inspiring. And I always say to myself and to my clients, like, what's the truth of you? Get to the truth of you. And I've had a wise mentor who coached me on that. And it just feels so good when you can just rest in that and know what your truth is and express that, right? Full expression in who you are, because you can't fully express yourself as somebody else. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't work.
Right. Because that's not your message.
Yeah. It's so good.
That's never what you were put on this planet to say. I very deeply believe that we all have a dharma or a higher purpose that we were put on this planet to share with the world. Like, there's a reason why we're here, and it's our job to figure out what that is.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm figuring it out every day. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm supposed to do this. Like, it just keeps getting uncovered. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I think that I have, in a sense, always felt really clear on what I'm here to do. And also, I just feel like every psychic or astrologer ever has always had the same message for me. So in that sense, it's always been really validating, and it just kind of brings me back to my path, because I know that I was never meant to go small.
Yeah.
Right. I've always known that I was meant to go super big. And I look back at all of my experiences and I think about how that prepared me for it. Right. I would not be able to grow as quickly as I do if I didn't have that strategic background that my education gave me. I would not be able to stay as grounded as I am or help people have such powerful personal transformations if I didn't go live in an ashram for 6 months. I was originally going to be there for 4 weeks, and it ended up turning into 6 months, and I became a member of staff. And I've been teaching yoga philosophy for 5 years. Most people don't know that.
Yeah,
So
that's super cool, by the way. I have a yogic background too, which is another reason why I felt really aligned with you. Just because it's, it's like a heart thing. I can't explain it. I just feel connected to you because for one of those reasons. So that's really cool. Super
absolutely,
cool.
yeah. And so I think that what I've also noticed about entrepreneurs is that most people start with the business and then they
Yeah.
want to work on mindset. Then they want to work on the personal side. But for me, I started with that. That
Same.
was my foundation. And so because of that, I didn't hold myself back as much as somebody else might have.
I love that so much. It's so, so true. Like all the yoga training that I've ever been through, I don't know if you're familiar with Baptiste yoga at all. It's a more westernized
My
style.
mom's one of the master Baptiste teachers. Yeah, she loves
Stop
it.
it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I've been to so many of Baron's trainings and like that's where I started too, is just with the uncovering and the remembering and peeling back all the layers and getting into my full expression and all the things. And then realize, oh, I'm supposed to help other people do this in some shape, way, or form, And
Totally.
leading from that place, I think, and I agree with you when you say like it's kind of what propelled me into being as successful as I am because I started from that place. I did the inner work, I did the mindset, and I'm still doing it. And now I'm like, well, wait, how do I strategically put together my business? you know? It's
Sure.
just
And I
funny.
think that's why I love the balance because I think in online business, people are so determined to be polarizing and to just kind of pick one camp and go all the way in. So some people are super hustle, hustle, hustle. That's where you've got like the Ty Lopez's and the Grant Cardones and
Yes.
Gary
Very
Vaynerchuk's,
good.
like super flow people. And then that can also be super confusing for people. So hustle is super draining. A lot of moms, a lot of women can't get behind that. Even a lot of men can't get behind that. But then you have the people who are super flow who are like, trust your intuition. Nobody has the intuition of how to build a business, right? Like nobody knows how to build an email list. They don't come out of the womb knowing how to
So true.
price a program,
Yeah.
right? You have intuitive hits of what feels good versus what doesn't feel good. But also there's going to be some fear coming up and you need to be able to discern what's the fear versus what's actually true. And so I think that's where having that balance of the strategy, but also of that yogic mindset is so important because people get to do this however they want to do it. If you want to be a super hustle person, you get to be that way. Your reality is going to reflect that. If you want to be a super flow person, you can do that. Your reality is going to reflect that. What I found is true for me is that I do better in a balance of both. And so that's the reality that I'm going to see of I feel like I do have a really balanced approach to business. I can make $1 million and still work 15 hours a week.
That is amazing. Amazing. And I want you to dive into that a little bit because I feel like there's so much to unpack there because I do feel like this is every online entrepreneur and probably entrepreneurs, thing that they struggle with is how to create the balanced approach to
Mm.
life and business. And maybe you have spiritual practices that you do that help you with that balance. Like how do you create that for yourself?
Yeah. So for me, I think that when we know our truth and what we believe, we sometimes preach it, but we don't always live it. Right. So, like, it can be like a relationship coach who might say, be nice to your husband, but then she is kind of a little bit snippy to hers. And I think sometimes that's why we have to remember our own message, and that can be our own work. It can be a lot easier to share your truth and live your truth. So, for me, what keeps me grounded is going back to what I know to be true, which is my approach to business, is my signature framework: intentional, manageable, profitable. So that all starts with intention. What's the intention of my life? What's the intention of my business? How do I want to structure this? How do I want to show up for this? How do I want to spend my time? So I always ask myself when making a decision or hiring somebody new or putting in place a new system or releasing a new product, does this get me more of what I want? What I want being the clear intention I've set for myself. So for me, what keeps me grounded and what keeps the balance is always coming against that and never deviating from that. Because if my intention is to have a business built around my life, then I'm not going to do something that has me working 60 hours a week.
Yes.
Right? Everything comes back to intention. So I think that's where it can be helpful, yes, to know your next best step, but also where are you going?
And on that note, I think that ties in perfectly with what you said earlier, which is like, when people are in this victim-based mindset. And I think that can happen in business. I've seen it happen with myself where I feel so boxed in with my schedule during certain weeks that I'm just like, what is going on here? And I feel like I'm a victim of my own schedule at times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it ties in perfectly with the intention. It's like, okay, well, what is my intention? Going back to basics, back to the basics of manifestation, back to the basics of where all of life comes from, which is intention, right? This desire. What is the intention?
For
And
sure.
if you're listening to this and you're like, whoa, that's me. I need that. I needed to hear that. Manifestation is so simple, yet people make it so hard. And I think having that reminder of just like, you are the creator and you have the power to change your intention when you feel like the victim.
Totally. And one thing I will notice with my clients is they get their orders confused. So if you're kind of thinking of it like a drive-through where you go and you say, I want a chocolate milkshake and a hamburger, and you ask for that, but then you loop back around and you're like, I want chicken nuggets and a Sprite. What the heck is the universe going to give you? So as an example in business, if you say, I want to be working 15 hours a week, but then because you really want more money, you take on twice as many private clients and now you're working 30 hours a week, you got your order confused, right? Either you weren't clear enough or you were asking for conflicting things. And a lot of this pops up from a place of fear, especially during launches, I notice, or at times when you need to get really visible, where people will say, I want to sell out my launch, but then they don't show up. Or I want to sell out my launch, but I don't want to do any live streams, or I don't want to have to get on sales calls. And it's like, okay, we need to kind of get this in alignment with the truth of what's actually going to get you that thing that you want.
Wow. I feel like you're literally speaking to my soul right now. It's so interesting because every time I say I want to work less, more one-on-one clients come out of the woodwork and they're like, take my money. But like, I physically cannot.
For sure. And I think that's where our job is, just to reaffirm our intention.
Yeah.
Where when those things come up, it's about staying true to your path. Because the more clear you are on your side, the more clear the universe is going to be on their side, because they're just responding to your energy.
Wow. So how do you stay clear on your path? Like, let's just say, yeah. How do you gain that clarity for yourself?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's a balance of both short-term goals and long-term vision.
Yeah.
So I will take action in the short term that might create some discomfort, but I know it's going to get me more of what I want down the road. So as an example, I'm hosting an event next month, and it feels really uncomfortable to be spending as much money as I am on the event. I'm spending over $140,000 on this event when I could have spent a lot less, but that video content and the photography content and everyone having an amazing experience is going to create FOMO for next year's event. It's going to have beautiful brand assets that I can use for my own speaking portfolio to create more of an expert positioning for myself. And so it's creating short-term discomfort, but long-term gain, right? So I can see how what I'm doing now is giving me more of what I want down the road. Or for example, hiring certain team members and then having them put in place systems and projects that are going to, set me up and make our business so much more successful or so much more professional. A lot of people will say on, line that are business coaches, you don't need websites, or you don't need funnels, or you don't need social media graphics, or you don't need any of this. And all of that is true. You don't need any of those things. But my truth is that I was always meant to go as big as I possibly could.
Right.
And so if that's the case, if my intention is to go as big as I possibly can and to have, a multiple 8-figure business one day, then I need to be thinking about that now and taking action in accordance with that vision now. If I want to have an 8-figure business, I need to have a website, right? If I want to be super omnipresent on social media, I need to quadruple my marketing team, which I just did. So I'm always taking action in alignment with my highest self and with that person that I ultimately want to grow into. Because I think a lot of people will kind of hold their dreams at like arm's length, where it's one day I will have a 7-figure business. But then you say, okay, when was the last time you hired a business coach? And they'll say, oh, well, I just finished working with one, so I want to take 6 months off and save. That's not how it works.
Amen. That's
Like how is that in alignment? Or I want to have a 7-figure business, but I'm not going to have a website. How does that make sense?
It doesn't make any sense. And I think that what you just said is such an amazing example. And I feel like in the woo-woo world, it's like, yeah, just like imagine the version of you that you want to be and then start showing up as her. But these are concrete examples that are like, okay, if this is your vision, essentially like what will get you there? What's a little bit uncomfortable in the short term to benefit your long-term goal?
Right. Because the thing is, we have this message out there that's unfortunately really toxic, where we tell people everything should be easy. And a lot of people mistakenly take that as, I don't need to work for it.
Right.
When in reality, you do have to work for the things that you want. Ease is a state of mind, right? If I want to make, 8 figures in my business, I made my first million by the time I was 24. Banked.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on that too. So I'm glad you just said that.
Yeah.
And by the way, everyone, yeah, you're such an expander. You're such an expander.
Yeah. Thank you. But I mean, like that just would not have happened if I hadn't have put in the work. And the thing is, making that money wasn't hard. I did have to work for it, but it was easy because I was so aligned with my purpose. There was a sense of ease because I knew what was true for me and where I was going. And a lot of us experience resistance to things we've never done before. That doesn't mean it's hard. You might feel resistant about hiring a business coach, but then you hire one for the first time and you make a bunch of money and you're like, oh my God, this is the best thing. Why didn't I do this sooner? Right.
All of your clients probably tell you that.
Sure. I mean, that happens all the time. I had a launch in July for a $50,000 program, and in 2 weeks we enrolled 7 people, and half of them had never spoken to me before. They had gotten a referral, got on a 20-minute sales call, and signed up then and there.
Wow. Because
they just knew, and they were like, this is scaring my pants off, but I know it's going to get me to the other side of what I want. Right. So sometimes you have to see beyond your fear. And that's where vision is so important, because that's what's going to propel you forward. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. You finish that thought.
I was just going to say that if you're always kind of stuck in your present discomfort, you're never going to push past that. I see, and this is also, again, where people are confusing their orders. I have a lot of potential clients reach out to me who will post on social media about how, I hate websites, I hate this, you don't need any of that. And they'll say things like, I'm making $50,000 a month, and then they'll get on a sales call with me and they'll say, yeah, I've made $8,000 a month for the last 6 months. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, not only are you like confusing your orders, but you're not actually in alignment with what's going on. And I think that's where integrity really comes into play.
Integrity is everything. Truly.
For sure.
Truly. And I think that plays a huge role in success as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to ask you, and I know you were going into your process intentional, manageable, and profitable, but I wanted to ask you, as you've elevated your energy and your business and your presence and your brand, all the things, what does it feel like? And I don't know how to actually phrase this, but I don't know how it's going to come out, but what does it feel like to you to receive that much money at one time from like one person and multiple, 7 people at one time, that much money? But does that feel like pressure to you? Does that feel like, do you ever feel like I have like they have to have results? Like, what is that like internally for you? If you don't mind sharing, I know it's maybe a little personal, but yeah, curious.
I get that. So I just realized it was 8 people, not 7, but altogether that launch came out to be around $480,000, something like that. And I have coached 3 women this year to 7 figures. And a lot of these women, like I said, started in July. One of them has already gone from $20,000 cash months to $50,000 cash months. Another one just did, I think, $15,000 in sales in like 7 days or something like that. So the results come really quickly. And I think that I don't feel pressure because I trust so much in my process and my ability to get results. And I also pick winners. And for me, a winner is not somebody who is smart or really well branded or whatever. For me, a winner is someone who knows that they're going to get exactly what they want out of life as long as they get committed to that decision and they go all in on that. So for me, if I see someone who comes to me who is in a very fear-based state, I still obviously want to help them, but they need to start with something else first. Maybe they need to be in another group program, right? Because you just have to hold space for people in different ways. And so I coach every single one of my clients differently. No client is coached the same. I think that where a lot of coaches struggle to get results is they learned one thing that worked for them and they try to apply that for every single person. But I have clients who are completely different personalities, right? I'll have someone who's super masculine. So if I try to coach them and say, okay, well, let's feel into your intuition here, they're going to be like, huh, what are you talking about? Yeah. If I have someone who's super on the feminine side and I'm like, let's go all the way in, content marketing strategy, boom, 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 they're going to get overwhelmed. And so with any type of person, I try and bring them back to center, but that process is going to look differently for every person. For some clients, I go all in on Facebook ads and passive income. For other clients, I go all in on, higher level mastermind and retreats and events, and everybody is different. And I feel a lot of safety in knowing that I have coached, at this point, thousands of business owners. I've gotten on private coaching calls with over 350 business owners. So I have literally seen it all. Wow. And I know that if the person is in the right mindset, magic happens quickly.
That's such a beautiful way to answer that question. Like it is so true. Like you can feel into someone's energy and know whether or not they believe in themselves to the level that it takes to actually create what they want.
Of course. And so I think that part of my life's work is helping women believe in themselves. And so that means having the discernment to know whether or not someone should be in a particular program. Because maybe someone needs to start in my academy or my accelerator or my mindset course or whatever, and then they can step into something a little bit higher. But it's about getting people to the place where they believe in themselves. And even that's why free social media content is so powerful, because we can transmute that energy and that belief from us into them. Because I think that's the difference between, being an influencer versus being someone who's truly inspirational. So with influencers, we kind of look up to people, right? Like, oh my gosh, Kylie Jenner and all her Bentleys. Right. But there's nothing that she ever really says that makes us feel like we can be like her. Right. Or that we can have that too. And so I think that influencers are kind of like, look at me, I'm up here. Whereas someone who's truly inspirational is going to lean down, grab your hand, and pull you up with them. And that's my mission through my content and through my programs.
It's awesome. And it definitely shows, And I always say to my clients, don't just share what you do, right? Don't just share what you do, share who you are, because I want to know who you are. And that's actually what's going to connect people to you,
Absolutely. And so one thing that's also been really comforting for me through this process is I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that someone will work with you if they're meant to. In spiritual terms, we'll say something like, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Right? Like you were always meant to go be in that yoga lineage. You were always meant to be born into that church. You were always meant to have that spiritual advisor that you do. Similarly in business, the clients who are going to work with me were always going to pick me. And they might pick me right now, but then they won't pick me later, or they didn't pick me at first and then they pick me. Right? It doesn't matter how I fit into their journey. If I'm meant to be there, I will. And so my job is just to show up, but I don't need to worry about competition or fear of visibility or anything like that. My job is just to show up and be available for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's so valuable for everyone that's listening, because I think competition is such a comparison is such a big thing right now. And it's over talked about, and we don't even have to get into it, but it's just nice to know that when you truly believe that you're meant to be in someone's life for however long, right? what's meant for you will not pass you by, and who's meant for you will not pass you by. And so it's just a beautiful reminder. I feel that way too. And I say to clients, like, I feel lucky to be part of your journey, whatever part that is, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so cool. Okay. So share the rest of your process. So we started at intentional, and then
Yeah.
it's manageable, right?
Manageable. So for me, if I want a balanced life, I need an organized life and I need an organized business. And so if you talk to my boyfriend, he'll tell you I'm the most functional, dysfunctional person ever. I am super chaotic in my personal life. I'm a complete free spirit. And that doesn't always get me more of what I want. That doesn't always serve me to fly by the seat of my pants. And so being manageable means having a team. I just hired my 21st team member, right?
Damn,
There's 21
girl.
people, thank you, 21 people on Team Sabrina, keeping that ship running so that I can go work 15 hours a week and I can go travel the world and get weekly massages and go to yoga classes and all of those things. So manageable and systems, having a website, having a content strategy, having funnels, all of that serves me. It gets me more of what I want. So when I talk about manageable, I'm really talking about systems, support, structure, hiring. It's about having those pieces in place that are going to allow you to get more of what you want and to elevate into your next level, which that next level is the profitability piece, which is that third pillar, profitable. So for me, with that big mission that I have, that's going to require funding. And I feel no energetic qualms about having large amounts of money. I think that for a lot of people that feels super uncomfortable. But for me, I feel like money has a very big and important place in my life, and it should, because that does get me more of what I want. Again, it all comes back to intention. So when we're talking about profitable, we're talking about selling out your launches, having a diverse product suite, having multiple streams of income, having passive income products, knowing how to do high ticket sales, knowing how to close $50,000 group mastermind packages or $100,000 private coaching packages. So that's what that profitable piece is. So whenever I make decisions in my business, I think, okay, is this aligned with the truth of what I want and where I'm going? How can I go ahead and make this as manageable and organized and systematized as possible? How can I make this as big of a moneymaker as possible? And I think that's where leverage comes into play, where it's saying, okay, I'm going to invest really big in my event right now, but it's going to pay off because I'm going to sell on from the stage and a lot of people are going to sign up from programs, and I'm going to use those marketing materials to promote my future programs and to get myself on stages and things like that. So it's really about leverage and seeing the bigger picture.
How soon in your business, if someone's, just starting, like, did you start leveraging from the very beginning? Because I know you were in Forbes, which is freaking amazing. Everyone go read her article in Forbes. They can just Google it, right? Sabrina Phillipp Forbes.
Google Sabrina Phillipp Forbes, it'll pop up.
Yeah,
so,
it's a great article.
Leverage is always something I've thought about. So as an example, most Forbes articles might get 3,000, 4,000 views in the first day, unless you're like on the main page. I had a very clear intention for what I wanted for my article, which was 100,000 views in the first 24 hours. I think we had 110 or 120,000 views, something like that. It was just over, which was absolutely unheard of. But I had a very strategic plan in place for how I was going to make that happen. I organized 280 women into a Facebook group. I said that if they helped me share this article in the first 24 hours, they would get prizes. I made a massive list of Facebook groups. One list was for business Facebook groups. Another list was for travel Facebook groups. And I asked people to go share that article in Facebook groups, send us a screenshot, and you'll be entered for prizes. I've never seen anybody do that before, but I just knew that it was going to work. I've seen lots of people try to do it since. And
was that like a divine download that you got?
Total divine download.
Yeah.
I was just like, because the thing is, a lot of times when you share your own stuff, people kind of clap for you, but that's it, because it's like, yay, look at her accomplishment. But it's completely different when I'm like, oh my God, did you see this thing that Ashley did?
Right.
And then
people are like, what did she do? Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I was like, I want you guys to share this as if, oh my God, who is this girl? I just found her. Not look at what my friend Sabrina did. And so everyone was just posting it. And it was on every single Facebook group. It was on everyone's profile. It was on everyone's feed. So everyone saw this article and everyone was clicking on it. Within a week, I had 5,000 more Facebook group members. I had 1,000 new people on Instagram. I had 2,000 more people on my list. And even leverage, I didn't just think about that Forbes article. So many people, the Forbes article comes out and they're going to post it and that's it. I had a plan for distribution, and then I wanted to go a step further. So I had an 8-week group program that I priced massively lower than what it was worth. I priced it at $497 with a $397 early bird. I had 120 people enroll.
Holy shit.
And a $70,000 launch maybe 2 or 3 weeks after my Forbes article came out. And the vast majority of people were new who had found me through Forbes or who had seen me before, but they didn't really pay attention until the Forbes article came out because they were like, how is she able to capture attention in that way?
Right. So you priced it low to get them into, like, to get them in because they weren't necessarily warm leads.
No, but that's the thing. Like, there was a third step. There was more leverage coming, which was my Bali mastermind launch. Wow. So I wanted to do a $20,000 mastermind, which was going to create monthly income every month for a year for me. So again, leverage. I was going to take those people in that group program. They were going to be my warmest leads that I was going to pitch into my mastermind. I was thinking, again, how can I make this different from everybody else? How can I stand out? And that's also, I think, something that's really helped me a lot. Sometimes I do get frustrated when I see people trying to copy everything that I do, but I also just feel really good about the fact that I know it's in alignment with what was true for me. And if I'm teaching people something that will help them get more of what they want, then that's cool too. But yeah, so what I did was I had a drone video made of like Bali rice fields and beaches and things like that. And we put out a messenger bot that would send people to the application, send people to the video. We sold out the mastermind on day one. We had a $250,000 launch on day one. We doubled the amount of spots and we had a $500,000 mastermind launch. And so it's easy to look at that isolated and just be, oh, wow, she had a really big launch. But actually it started with the Forbes article. It went from Forbes to the group program to the mastermind. It all trickled together. And so I think that's what we mean about leverage. It's not just how can I take this one opportunity and get a lot of eyes on it, but how can I make this make me money? How can I make this get me more of what I want?
So genius, like serious genius happening there. Like that's unbelievable. When that was all happening and continues to happen, right? Like, does it blow your mind or are you just like, yeah, this is normal. I'm creating this.
Well, I think for me, I have to get so locked in on what's happening. I just have to absolutely decide that when I do get it, of course, there's a moment of, oh my God, I can't believe I just did that. But also, of course, I got it.
Right. And then
I decided that it would.
Right. Totally.
And I think what's important to note here is I'm very locked on mindset wise, but I'm also extremely strategic, which I think you can tell from how I plan out my business. And it's that balance of both that I think has allowed me to grow as quickly as I have and still do it in a way that feels good, where I can work 15 hours a week and serve, hundreds of clients and hundreds of thousands of social media followers and people on my email list, but do it in a way that feels good. And so that's where that balance is so important.
And what's really interesting is I think for so many people hear the word strategy and they immediately think it's masculine, but actually the way that what I'm getting from you is that it's actually really intuitive.
It's super intuitive. I think though that, again, nobody's going to come out of the womb knowing how to write a marketing plan. But if you get that mentorship and you open up space for divine downloads and you just kind of say, okay, this is what we're going to do. How can I plan that out step by step? That's when that strategy actually supports my feminine. Right? Because it starts with what I am feeling, what's coming through me of like my creative ideas that will just pop up and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I want to do this. And then the masculine's going to come in and say, okay, here's the step. Here's the plan.
Wow. That's beautiful. Together. Yeah. They work together. Oh my God. They work together. It's amazing. That's how it should be. Wow. It makes a lot of sense. And did you obviously manifested yourself into Forbes, or did you hire like PR? Like, is that another piece of leverage?
Yeah, so I had someone reach out to me on Instagram. She was a Forbes contributor and she said that she really loved my Instagram captions and she loved my message and that she, was traveling the world but hadn't been able to make, any money online. And I was like, okay, well, let me talk to you about that a little bit, knowing that if I impressed her, she might want to write about me for Forbes. And then she offered to, and she did. So I think it's also just, this is again where intuition can come up, where I don't necessarily know how to approach press, but I know an opportunity when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I really don't need to do anything else other than be myself. It's not like I needed to send her a bunch of fancy chocolates or anything like that. I just needed to show up and speak my truth. And she was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think opportunity knocks more than not. And for those of you listening that are like, well, how did you just kind of go for that? The thing is you have to recognize it. You have to be able to receive it when it's actually showing itself to you. Would you
For
agree?
sure.
Yeah.
Totally. And I think that this is where worthiness is super important because so many people, I hate this idea that it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. There's no
Oh,
such thing.
no.
There are opportunities all day, every day. Like your life
Floating
just
around us, floating around all the time. Yeah.
all the time, right? Just like money is floating all around you. It's just about when you decide to reach out and grab it. Your life changes the day that you decide it does. And so when it comes to things like opportunity, you have to feel worthy of receiving that good thing because so many people sabotage themselves and just don't go for things because their logic creeps in and they're like, oh, well, I could never make that work or I could never make it happen. But this is where feminine energy comes in. But if you just decide and feel into it, the masculine's going to step in, the universe is going to step in, and you're going to figure it out. But you have to make the decision first. That's where it starts.
The decision is always first. Everything else will follow. Yeah. So true. I love this conversation so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important to have.
I completely agree. And you're amazing. I wanted to ask you something else and it just kind of slipped my mind, but it will come back. Oh, actually, I was going to ask you this. Do you believe that I don't personally believe in luck? And I was wondering, do you believe in luck or do you believe that everything that you've created and manifested is you directing your life, like deciding?
I think that people who believe in luck don't feel worthy, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You can't just say, I created this, or I did this, or I worked for this. So you'll kind of create space between that. You'll create space between your own power and you'll say, oh, I just got lucky.
Yep.
And it's like, no, girl, you studied for that test. Like, no, girl, like you got that job. Like you did that. So
Wow.
I think that luck is a way of people creating space from their own power because I think that if we realize how powerful we were, we would just feel so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will. When I like tap into my full power, I'm like, yeah, I feel it. You know, I get all woo-woo and then that's when I feel like I literally just have, like you said, I just have to show up because everything's already here and I already am everything.
Right. It's all remembrance.
It's all remembrance. Yeah. So I have to ask you, I think it's already been said, but what makes Sabrina Phillipp a badass manifester?
I think that I'm just really able to lock in, kind of like how dogs will like sniff something and then they have to go find that thing.
Yeah.
Like whether that's like drugs or a bomb or whatever, for me it's like miracles. Like I sniff something and I'm like, we're going for it, like all the way in, you can't stop me. And so I just really lock in on what it is that I want. I'm super clear, I don't get my order confused, and I don't quit.
I love that. And what do you think the biggest mistake is that people make when they are going for the miracle, but for them it's just, air quotes, not working out?
Well, I think that in itself is a mistake, like thinking, oh, it's not working out. It's
Yeah.
not that it's not working out, it's that you think it's not happening fast enough. Right?
Yes.
So your fear is creeping in and you're saying, oh, it's not working. How would you know? Like, are you God? Do you know what's going to come next? Like, you could literally be 5 minutes away from getting that thing that you want. You could literally wake up tomorrow and sign your first $10,000 client. You could literally, be in Forbes next month, but you're going to quit now because it's not happening fast enough.
So
Are you serious?
yeah.
And that's the other thing. Like, as soon as you start to think it's not happening fast enough, pay attention, your actions will pull back. Your energy will pull back. Your order will get confused. If you are super locked in and super clear, that thought wouldn't pop up. So if it does, don't shame yourself. Everyone's going to be there at some point or another. The reason why the fear is creeping in is because you really want it and you're afraid you're not going to get it. And to kind of create space from that pain, you're like, oh, well, it's not working. Let me blame the manifesting.
Right.
When really you just need to keep the path.
It's so true. I've seen that on my own journey of just keeping the path and quantum leaps in 1 year. I mean, you quantum leap every day, right? So it's just like I can see the growth in 1 year, even just 6 months. I mean, it's unbelievable what happens when you just stay in your power and you stay the path.
Totally. And I think that's also where, coaching can be so great, just because it is tough. It is difficult to stay your path. Fear is a normal human experience.
Right.
We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Like, let's not shame that human experience, right? Fear is totally normal. But I think whether that's a mentor or a partner or a friend or whoever, it's really important to surround yourself with people who understand your vision and can hold you to that. So when your fear creeps in, they say, no, this is where we're going. I'll sometimes get freaked out by how quickly my business is growing. And my boyfriend will laugh at me. I remember I had to fire someone a few months ago just because they were not doing their job. And I felt so uncomfortable about it. And he's like, Sabrina, when you buy Harpo, which is Oprah's media company, and you have to lay off 100 people, this is going to feel like nothing, right? You have no idea where you're going. This is just the beginning. So I know it feels really uncomfortable now, but I'm always going to keep hitting levels of discomfort, new level, new devil, and I just have to keep moving through them. So this feels really big right now, but looking back, it won't be. And that's why it's important to get to the other side of your fear and the other side of your discomfort.
So awesome. Such wise words. Thank you so much. Wow. Amazing. I mean, you've dropped so many nuggets, but I always ask, do you have any last words of wisdom to share with our people?
I always like to tell people that your life changes the moment you decide it will. And I think that it really does come back to the power of decision. And I think there's a difference between a decision versus a feeling, which is if you feel really motivated and hyped up, things are going to pop up and you're going to slip out of that feeling of, oh, I want this, I'm going to do this. But if you really lean into your masculine decision making and you're like, we are going all the way in, that is when it all changes. And so don't be afraid of that balance between your feminine and masculine. But it all starts with decision.
So make the decision and go all in. It's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this was amazing.
Can you share with everyone where they can find you and how they can be your friend on social?
Absolutely. So I'm all over social media. It's at Sabrina M as in Michelle, my middle name, Philip, Philipp. You can Google Sabrina Phillipp Forbes and find out more about me, or go to my website, sabrinaphillipp.com. I have a free Facebook group of 20,000 entrepreneurs called The Intentional Entrepreneur. So just take a search and come hang out with us.
I'm in the group, guys. Come hang out. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. This was amazing.
Thank you so much for listening to the Badass Manifestor podcast. I love manifesting Mondays with you, and there's so much more in store right here. The best way to manifest love is to give love. If you loved what you heard today, subscribe to the Badass Manifestor podcast. Leave a review on iTunes. Let me know how much you dig the energy here. All of my social is linked up in the show notes, so screenshot this episode, tag me on Instagram, and let me be part of your real-time journey. For more info on me, feel free to go to my website, manifestwithash.com. Repeat after me. I am my own power source. I am the master of my energy, and I deserve everything that I desire. Go get them.